If you've been working on changing your self-concept and stepping into a different version of yourself, a new version of yourself, maybe becoming your future self so that you can become available to the things that you desire, that you want to experience in your future, and you can take the future and bring it into the present, or just so that you can feel exactly how you want to feel, how you think you deserve to feel, that you are not settling in your life. How do you know whether that transformation has actually happened or whether you're still just thinking about it, dreaming about it, or taking small steps towards being who you want to be? Let's talk about how you know whether your self-concept has truly changed and the 10 telltale signs that your self-concept is really shifting. Hello my loves, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here. My name is Lorena. I'm a somatic self-concept and identity coach, and I support you in bridging the gap between who you currently are or see yourself as and who you desire to be or become. Before we go into that, I just want to make clear that the reason a lot of people want to change their self-concept is so that they can live up to their fullest potential, so that they're not settling for less. And essentially, when you bridge the gap between who you currently are and who you want to be or who you want to see yourself as, it's about a version of you that you would like to be in the future. It's like a projected future version of you, and you are wanting to bring that version, that future version of you, into the present. You want to become it now rather than just hope for the best, rather than just hope that you will develop into that version of yourself, or rather than just letting life happen to you. But instead, what many people do is they take a version of themselves from the past and they project that into the present and into the future. That way, their identity never fully changes. Their self-concept never fully changes. It's just a slightly adjusted version of their past self. Because something that I always speak about is how our imagination is actually incredibly limited. And I have a video about this. But because our imagination is so limited, we tend to look at what we've experienced in the past or who we've been in the past, and we make that mean something about the future. We make that mean something about what's possible for us now and what's possible for us in the future. And this is a completely unconscious process. You're not consciously sitting there and wanting to repeat the past. Well, clearly, if you want to experience new patterns, you want to break through some old patterns, you don't want to re-experience the past. You want to experience something better than the past. Even if the past has been amazing, you want to make progress. You want to improve your life. You want to be better than you were yesterday, maybe. But because we have such a deep attachment to the past, because it's so familiar, we still tend to project that into the present and the future. Now, before I go into the 10 signs, I want to speak about some misunderstandings or misconceptions about changing your self-concept. Most of the content that I have personally seen online about changing your self-concept, and that is not necessarily bad content, but most of it is about faking it till you make it. Most of it is about changing your identity, changing your self-concept by practicing and by pretending. But truthfully, that doesn't actually guarantee that you will become that version of yourself. Simply sitting here and dreaming of it doesn't make it happen, which is why so many people are stuck. And there are some changes you can make, right? You can take certain actions. You can act from your future self. I speak about this a lot too. But it really runs so much deeper than most people let on. And what I often notice is that when people talk about changing your self-concept or changing your identity, it's not really explained how to do it. You might receive some techniques, you might receive some meditations or affirmations, or maybe even some frameworks, but the actual how is lacking. Changing your self-concept is about so much more than just talking yourself into it. It's about so much more than just the decision to be another version of yourself. It's a complete transformation of self. It's a shedding of all the layers of your consciousness, of all the parts of yourself, of all the subconscious patterns and emotional charges that are keeping you in your current identity and your current self-concept. a decision, an intention, a vision is often the starting point, but it's not done with that. I have an in-depth coaching program all around changing your self-concept. That's everything that my work is about. And it's a really deep, intentional process of integration of different parts of yourself and your psyche. And I teach this in a really specific way, and it leads to a natural shift in your state of being, a natural shift in your identity that happens very automatically. So you end up getting really embodied in the version of you that you want to be, without having to do a ton of practices or without only approaching it from surface level perspective. So that way your self-concept changes naturally and automatically. It leads to specific external outcomes and manifestations, and you don't have to try and change anything about you. You just become it. You have become it by the end of it. Just take a moment to check out the links in the description box below. I have linked a free masterclass replay there. It's called Deserving, and it's all about embodying a sense of self-worth. Truly feeling worthy rather than just telling yourself that you are. And that is a very important part of your self-concept, of your self-identity. It's your self-worth and how much you are embodied in your deservingness, rather than just dreaming of it or telling yourself you're worthy. There's a big difference between feeling worthy. You're worthy already. You don't need to become worthy. You already are. But there's a big difference between feeling worthy and just telling yourself that you are and not really feeling it. 10 signs that your self-concept has truly changed. Number 1, you don't feel activated or triggered by the same things anymore. In fact, the very things that used to bother you, that used to trigger you, now leave you completely unfazed. This is how you know that something has really integrated, that something has really shifted. The first sign that you're experiencing a change in your self-concept is not the change in the external reality. If you've had a self-concept of feeling like you don't matter, for example, as a very basic example, the sign that that has changed is not always just that, oh, now people show you that you matter and you get these messages and you get these signs, although that can be part of it, and that often is and becomes part of it very quickly. It's how you react to people telling you that you don't. It's how you react to circumstances that demonstrate to you that maybe you don't matter. And not only do you not feel activated by these same things anymore, you're probably not interpreting it in the same way anymore. And this is not something that you have to consciously tell yourself to do. It's not something that you have to make yourself do. It's automatic. But if, for example, you notice that when you have an experience that's opposite to what you desire, you still have an emotional charge, an emotional reaction to it, and there's nothing wrong with it, by the way. You're human. Of course, you're going to get triggered, and we can work on this and we can start to transmute these triggers. But when you notice that that's still activating you, or that you need to try and shift your perspective, you're actively shifting your perspective rather than the perspective shift is automatic, then you know there's still work to do on your self-concept. It's not fully landed. You haven't fully transformed into a new version of yourself yet. The second sign is that your desires actually change. When your self-concept truly changes, your desires will change, or your perspective on them will change. So what may have felt exciting or far away suddenly feels supernatural and normal. And maybe not even exciting anymore. Maybe it's not even lighting you up anymore. The other week, for example, I hit a deadlift goal at the gym, and that was something that I'd been working on for a while, and I was picturing myself being so excited when I finally hit that, when I finally achieve it. And when I actually did, yeah, I was happy for like a split second. I was like, oh my God, I did it. But it actually felt so completely normal, and it wasn't even such a big deal. And that was because my identity had already shifted. Before I even achieved it, before I even did it, I already saw myself as somebody who would. I already had the identity of course I can do this. And then of course I could, because I saw myself as somebody who could. So often when your self-concept hasn't changed yet, you see whatever you want as a much bigger deal. And once your self-concept changes, you don't see it as a big deal anymore. You see it as very natural. And that's when it usually comes in like around the corner. It's usually a few days away then. Or you might also have different desires come in. Your desires might completely change. You might now want things that you previously didn't want, and then the work begins all over again, because changing your self-concept is an ongoing process. You're constantly evolving into newer and newer versions of yourself. Whatever you think you currently want, once you're there, you're gonna want something else, right? Number 3, very simple. You just freaking feel it. You just know it. Because when your self-concept has truly changed, you don't doubt. You know the transformation has happened, because you're not going back and forth anymore. You're not having to make yourself believe anything. You're not having to consciously manage your mind or change your perspective. It's just who you are. And that's palpable. Like, you can feel that in every cell of your being. And on that note, number 4, you take different actions. And these actions are automatic. This is actually something that one of the women who was in the most recent intake of Recreate Yourself, she said on the very last call, I believe it was, I am just taking different actions. I don't even need to make myself. I don't even need to question or wonder. This is how I know that I've become a new version of myself, because the things that I'm doing now, I would not have done a few months ago before I did Recreate Yourself. This was her proof. Her unconscious, automatic, aligned actions showed to her that she had changed. She had become a new woman. She had become a new version of herself. She had become who she had wanted to be. Number 5, your self-worth and your confidence are through the roof. Your best version of yourself is your most authentic version of yourself. When you are so fully rooted in who you are, you're gonna feel worthy and you're gonna feel confident. If you feel really confident about who you are, you're not constantly doubting, you're not questioning your worth, you're not struggling so much with imposter syndrome or insecurities, then you know that something has shifted. Number 6, your circumstances actually change, your reality changes, or you at least get signs that you're on the right track. One of my clients messaged in our wins, because we have like a little wins communications channel where everybody shares their successes to inspire one another so that everybody can lift each other up. She shared that she had recently set the intention to hit a new income goal. And shortly after, she got an offer that reflected the exact income goal that she had set for herself. And regardless of whether that is the dream offer, or regardless of whether that is exactly what she wants or what she would take, that is a clear sign that something has shifted, especially looking at how she responds to that. Because the response to that is, yay, I'm excited because that's the first time I've gotten an offer on this level. But also her response of, yeah, cool, of course, shows her that her identity, her self-concept has actually already aligned with that. She's already seeing herself as the version of herself that gets opportunities like that. It doesn't feel far-fetched anymore. So external circumstances changing, signs coming in, opportunities coming in are also a clear sign that something has shifted in your self-concept. Number 7, you give yourself what you want and you trust yourself to stick to your commitments. Something that I see in a lot of people who are still not fully rooted in the identity and the self-concept that they want to live from is a lack of self-trust, a lack of self-worth often, and a lack of self-trust. And that doesn't mean that they don't feel worthy or they don't trust themselves at all. It can be just not quite enough. It can be just something that needs some improvement. When you have changed your self-concept to an extent, at least, you're not waiting for things to come to you. You give yourself what you want. You make it happen. You do what it takes. And when you say you're going to do something, you're actually going to do it. You don't go back and forth all the time. Number 8, you put yourself in new environments. Think about it this way, the version of you that you want to be, let's say the version of you that is open to love, that is open to a new relationship, her heart is open, or the version of you that feels more abundant, more trusting, more wealthy, more worthy, whatever it is, she's going to live her life differently. She's going to put herself around different people in different rooms. She's going to talk differently. She's going to open up differently. She's going to hang out in different places. You know that you have already transformed to an extent into that version of yourself, or that you are on the way, when you automatically go to these places and it doesn't feel fake or abnormal. Maybe when you now go on a date, you feel a lot more confident. You go into it with a different attitude than you used to. Or maybe when you go to that fancy bar, you don't feel out of place anymore, even though externally nothing has changed for you. So how you feel in different environments tells you a lot about your identity, about your self-concept, and also whether you put yourself in these environments. Because often when we feel uncomfortable, based on our identity, based on our self-concept, we're not even going to put ourselves there. Because on some level, we feel like we don't belong there. Number 9, you feel comfortable in uncertainty, which to an extent comes back to that self-trust and also to that sense of confidence. Because let's face it, life isn't certain. Nothing is guaranteed in this lifetime. You don't actually know what the future brings. You don't. No matter how much conviction you have, no matter how embodied you are, no matter where your self-concept is at, you don't know for sure. You can never know for sure. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Nobody does. So it's actually essential to learn to embrace uncertainty and to begin to feel comfortable in uncertainty. And that is a sign that your self-concept has changed, because whoever you currently see yourself as, you see yourself as that because on some level it feels comfortable. It feels known, it feels cozy, it feels familiar. So in order to change your self-concept, you need to break out of that and you need to embrace the uncertainty of what's next. And when you begin to feel comfortable in that uncertainty and you begin to embrace it, you know that you have left an old part of your identity behind. You know that you have moved on from that. Maybe you've even dismantled that and you're ready for something fresh and new. And the 10th sign is that you feel a sense of wholeness and love for what you used to feel ashamed of. So that's essentially love for your past self. We all have parts of ourselves that we don't like, that we feel ashamed of. And the more we can embrace them, the more we can re-own them, the more we can love them, the more complete and whole you're gonna feel. The more you're going to be able to embody any version of yourself that you want to be, because you're not fighting who you were or who you are anymore. So there are probably some points in these 10 signs where you feel like, yeah, I feel like I've nailed that. I feel like I'm doing that. Awesome. And there are probably some points where you feel like, okay, not quite. This still needs some work. So I want to just remind you, this is an ongoing journey. You're always going to be on a journey of transforming into a new version of yourself. What I help you with is accelerate that process and get it deeply embodied and integrated in your being, rather than you having to go back and forth or having to question or wonder. But the magic of this is that there is always more to do. And that's not in terms of this is a chore, but there is always more for you to experience and become and step into, because your potential is infinite. One of my clients from last year said at the end of her time in Recreate Yourself that before she joined the program, she'd already thought that she'd had a good self-concept, but that this program has provided her with so much more than she knew possible. And I think this is really important, because you don't need to struggle to dive into this work. You're probably already making good progress. You've probably already changed your self-concept, but that doesn't mean it's over and done with. And that's not a bad thing, that's an amazing thing, because this is only the beginning. Let me know in the comments which of these 10 points you've already experienced, which of these signs you've already experienced, and which ones you are looking forward to experiencing. We're back with a new video next week. If you want to work with me directly, you want to join Recreate Yourself, you can look at my coaching program linked in the description box below. You can also send me a DM on Instagram and ask me any questions that you have, or just connect with me, because I love vibing with you in my DMs. And I'll see you in next week's video.